Like waiting for my paycheck to see if I can afford rent and groceries this week, storytelling is a mixture of suspense, dread, and excitement. Does our hero manage to win the big Quidditch match, prevent a buff raisin from snapping his fingers, or convince their landlord to give them another week on the rent? Again. Suspenseful storytelling is arguably the most critical aspect of keeping an audience engaged into the next chapter, next episode, or anything that the storyteller puts their name on, which is why it's also one of the most energy intensive parts of making a story come to life. That's why today we're going to look at Attack on Titan, how the story keeps you engaged despite not knowing what's going on, how it forces viewers to keep watching even when they're emotionally exhausted, and how the story captivates you to the point you forget you're going to have to move back into your mom's basement. These 5 tips are all equally important, whether your story is a thriller, mystery, drama, or comedy, so make sure you consider all of these strategies when writing your story. Starting with strategy number 1. Start a fight. Conflict is the arthritis-riddled backbone of storytelling, full of twists, turns, fractures, and tumors while still supporting the bulk of the narrative. This conflict can be thought of in terms of large scale, i.e., surviving carnivorous giants in the fight for human survival, or it can be thought of in terms of small scale, the death of a loved one, the loss of a dream, or letting go of the family you always wanted for the family that adopted you. Conflict increases story tension by giving a character the opportunity to choose. Will they feed a friend to the meat factory in order to protect their mission? Will they hold a grudge even though it jeopardizes their goal? Will a little slave girl abandon 2,000 years of oppression to side with a thumbless shouting man? By creating choices, we create uncertainties, and those uncertainties cause our butts to clench the same way as walking on ice or deciding to get out of bed and give it one more try. But here's the thing about choices. They are just like one-night stands from what I've been told. It's not enough just to have them. There need to be consequences. Which brings us to point number 2. Not only should there be consequences, but you need to make them big consequences. When I go down the freezer aisle at the food bank, I need to decide what government-grade ice cream I want this week, and with that decision comes a conundrum. Do I want chocolate or vanilla diarrhea? But notice how the consequences aren't extremely different because the effect is the same regardless of what I choose, and the mistakes made are minimal because I sleep over the flood drain in my mom's basement to make cleanup easier. In Attack on Titan, no one has ice cream unless they want to cross an entire ocean and masquerade as regular civilians in a country that despises them. Being caught as not only Eldians, but Eldians from Paradis would almost immediately get them killed. And while I am an avid lover of the cream, it's hardly a risk I'd be willing to take just so I can crap my pants. Notice how the stakes are higher for taking action because the consequences are more severe. We see this type of life or death decision making all the time in Attack on Titan, whether it's deciding to camp outside, ride a horse for a few extra seconds, or fall in love with the first person who stabs another man for you. When small decisions are the difference between life and losing half of the cast members, every choice is diarrhea-inducingly terrifying, but that doesn't mean that every choice in your story should be immediate life or death. And that brings us to point number 3. Hard choices have different burn rates. Pick the one appropriate for how you want your audience to feel. Like asking your cousin to prom, timing is everything. If you do it too early, she'll have time to think up an excuse. Too late, and your brother might make the first move. Too far from the event, and she'll remember you didn't get her a gift for Christmas, and too close to the night of the event, and you'll startle her and trigger her epilepsy. When timing a decisive moment in your story, it's important to consider how a life-altering choice will affect your hero both in the moment and long-term. For example, when Eren discovers his Titan Shifter powers, he doesn't have an opportunity to understand these powers for himself before he needs to convince Willman that he's not a threat. When Gabby sees an opportunity to avenge her friends' deaths, she doesn't have time to think her plan all the way through. Furthermore, her impulsive decision forces Falco to make an impulsive decision of his own, resulting in both children winding up in a prison across the ocean, surrounded by surprisingly nice and caring people who need to be taught a lesson. These short bursts of pressure cause our characters to make rash decisions, decisions which increase short-term tension of the story while ultimately emphasizing their fundamental character, whether it's a need to protect their friends, a love interest, or avenge their family. These fight or flight choices will get an immediate rise out of your audience, but the effects, while potentially catastrophic, can feel short lived. And since this is a channel about storytelling and not your abysmal performance in the bedroom, let's look at ways to drag out the excitement and suspense with point number 4: setting a timer. So, sometimes this is explained using a clock on the wall, a timer for a bomb, or the burning of a wick on a stick of dynamite. But here's the thing: timers can be as short as a scene or as long as an entire series. When the Colossal Titan gave Walmaria a new front door, we have a timer in which our heroes can escape the Shiganshina district. It's not a definitive clock, but we understand the need for Eren, Armin, and Mikasa to get the hell out of their hometown as soon as possible. This single stressor and timer adds tension to decisions like going back for mom, attempting to defend Carla, dedicating the rest of Aaron's life to revenge, and that tension gets us through the remainder of an episode. But then there are longer forms of timers, such as how long is the rest of Aaron's life? The constant threat of death and the curse of Ymir are timers, both short term with no definite end and long term with an exact timestamp of 13 years. During each episode, we have concerns that Eren might die at any given point because that's just the nature of the story world, but then, long term, we are frequently reminded that Eren only has 13 years to pull off his master plans before running the risk that his curse as a Titan shifter will need to go to one of his friends. In both cases, we as audience members are concerned with high risk consequences in the short term and long term of the show, because there are several hourglasses running simultaneously. Some make us anxious because of their immediate ramifications for all of our main characters, and some make us dread the long term consequences if Eren and Paradis do nothing. This adds weight to the stakes by causing pain to the cast if they act too hastily, but then also causing pain if they do nothing at all. There is a set of timers forcing them to move forward into decision, and another set of timers serving as a definitive end to Eren, or possibly all of Paradis if Marley attacks. It's like going to your ex's for a homemade dinner. If you don't eat it, you'll starve, or she'll stab you. But if you do eat it, you're going to have to keep an eye out for the rat poison tablet she always sneaks into the mashed potatoes. It's a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation that you can't get out of unless you go back to the dating world, and nobody wants to do that. So that leads us to our next point: digging through the mashed potatoes so you don't get sick, or what most people call step number 5: being patient. Like a teenager on a first date, we as storytellers are usually in a rush to skip straight to the good stuff: buttered popcorn at the movies while her father gives you dirty looks. But, as with any relationship, good things take time in order to form trust, tension, and understanding. We want to take time when building up to a major confrontation, reveal, or climax, whether it's a fight with a rival, discovering what's making that weird noise in the basement, or getting told, "We should just be friends," when you lean in for a kiss. This sustained pressure is why combustion engineers have jobs and what relationship experts refer to as game. But for the sake of writing, we'll just call it the same thing as my stripper name: rising action. Like strippers, the goal of rising action is to get as much out of your audience as possible before giving away the goods to pay for college. We see this in Attack on Titan leading up to its major reveals, sometimes in the form of cliffhangers and sometimes as breakaways. Breakaways occur when our heroes discover a new piece of information, let's say discovering Historia's true identity, but the camera breaks away to another scene somewhere else in the story world before we, the audience, are told what has been discovered. Cliffhangers are when something dramatic happens, but both the audience and characters are left wondering what is going on and what is about to happen. This would be discovering that the walls are made out of titans, or that Sunny and Beam had been untightened by someone in the ranks. What breakaways and cliffhangers do is tease our imaginations with what might be coming up next in the story, leading us to continue watching or reading into the next episode or chapter. Think about that time your hot professor asked you to come to her office hours without any explanation. You were excited, anticipating what it was she could want to talk about to you, dreaming about her throwing all of her papers off her desk, grabbing you by the collar and telling you, "You failed the course a third time and you're getting kicked out of school." which is a cliffhanger followed by a plot twist. You should check out this video next. Anyway, in storytelling, it's not always about what you tell your audience as much as it is about letting their minds run wild, even if it's in the wrong direction. Like your parents did for you, give your audience bad information and let them run with it. All you need to do is plant the seed of anticipation, keep leading them on, and be patient, waiting for your viewer to tell their own story in their head as they chomp at the bit for you to give them the real answers. Thank you guys so much for watching. Remember to like the video if you found it useful. Also, there is a link to my book in the description if you're looking for a new read. And on that note, until next time, go tell the best story possible. Na 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 na. The end.